Alright, how's it going? Let's take a look at how to find the least common multiple. I've got 3 examples here. So the least common multiple, what we're looking for is we're looking for the smallest number that these will divide into evenly. Alright, that's what we're looking for. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at the first one. So the first thing we have to do, the 6 and the 15, we have to write these as a product of prime numbers. Now, I'm not going into a lot of detail about how to do that in this video. I have a video that will go into more detail of how to do the prime factorization. If you're at this point, then you've already covered that, okay, and you should know how to do it. If not, check out that other video. All right, so let's look at the 6. All right, so for 6, we got to write it as a product of prime numbers. Well, I mean, that one's pretty easy. That's just 2 times 3, all right? And then we do the 15. Well, that's just 3 times 5, okay? All right, and I'll do a little more detail when I get down to these of writing them out in prime numbers, but these, I mean, those were the only 2 numbers. All right, so now we've got to find the least common multiple. All right, so what we do is you look at each different factor, okay? So for this example, let's take a look at the 2 first. All right. Now, the 2, how many times does it appear in this up here with the 6? Well, it appears 1 time, right? And how many times does the 2 appear down here? Well, that's 0 times. Okay, so up here it appears once, down here it appears 0. You use it the most number of times it appears. So for this problem, it appears, the most it appears is once. So we use it 1 time. So that will be 2 times. All right. Now let's look at the next different factor, the 3. All right. So up here, the 3 appears what? 1 time. And down here, the 3 appears 1 time. What's the most it appears in one of them? Well, that's 1 time. So we use it just 1 time. So that's times 3. And then we look at the next different factor. So we've taken care of the 2 and the 3. All right. Now let's look at the next different factor, the 5. Here it appears 1 time, and up here the 5 appears 0 times. Well, the most it appears in one of them is 1 time, so we use it once. And so this is 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. And there's your least common multiple. All right, so let's take a look at another one. And, you know, watch all the examples, because that was a simple one. And sometimes the simple ones don't, you can't really get it from the simple problems, but the more complicated, sometimes it'll make more sense. So let's look at the 30 and the 40, and we need to write these as a product of prime numbers. So let's write the 30 as a product of prime numbers. Now, this one might be a little bit harder, so what we can do here is do this little tree. So what I do, just what's the smallest prime number that goes into 30? Well, that's 2, and that's 2 times what? 15, and then 15 can be broken down into 3 times 5. All right. So you can see 30 can be written as 2 times 3 times 5. All right. So that's 2 times 3 times 5. Now let's look at the 40. So the 40, well, that's what? 2 times 20. And then 20 can be written as 2 times 10. and then 10 can be written as 2 times 5. All right. So the 40 can be written as 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. So that is going to give us 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. So now we're ready to find the least common multiple. All right. So we look at each different factor. Let's look at the 2's first. So here, the 2's appear what? 1 time. Down here, the 2's appear 3 times. Well, the most it appears in one of them is 3 times, so we use it 3 times. So that's 2 times 2 times 2. All right. Now let's look at the next different factor. Let's look at the 3. Here it appears once, and in this one it appears 0. The most it appears is 1 time, so we use the 3 1 time. Now let's look at the next different factor, the 5. Here the 5 appears 1 time. Here the 5 appears 1 time. The most it appears in one of them is once, so we use it 1 time. And then we multiply all these up, so that's going to be, let's see, that's going to be 120 is the least common multiple. All right, so now let's take a look at the last example. All right, so let's take the 42 and the 70 and the 84, and we need to write each of these as a product of prime numbers. All right, so for the 42, well, that can be what? 2 times 21, and then 3 times 7. So this one is going to be 2 times 3 times 7. All right, so now let's look at rewriting the 70. All right, so, you know, in all the ones that I've written as a product of prime numbers, I've started with 2 or something like that. And of course, this is 2 times 35. But, you know, if you don't see that, you can just write it as a product of 2 numbers you know. Like, for instance, this is what? 7 times 10. We know that. That's easy. Well, 7's a prime number, but 10's not. So let's break that down. So that's 2 times 5. And so for 70, that would be 2 times 5 times 7. So see, I mean, you can do it like that also. All right. Now let's look at the 84. Well, this one, that's 2 times, let's see, what is that, 42? Okay. And then this would be what, 2 times 21, and then 3 times 7. So 84 would be 2 times 3 times 7. So the least common multiple, all right, so we look at each different factor. We use it the most number of times it appears in one of them. So let's look at the 2. So here the 2 appears once, here the 2 appears once, and here the 2 appears twice. So we use it 2 times. Now let's look at the next different factor, the 3. So here it appears once, here it appears 0, and here it appears once. So the most it appears in one of them is once, so we use it 1 time. Then we look at the next different factor. Well, let's look at we could do the 7. I just usually go in numerical order. You don't have to, but that's just what I do. So let's look at the 5. So the 5 here, it appears once. Up here it appears 0, and with the 84 it appears 0. So the most it appears in one of them is 1 time, and so we use it 1 time. And then we look at the 7. Here the 7 appears once, here it appears once, and here it appears once. So the most it appears in one of them is 1 time, so we use it 1 time. And then we can multiply all this together. That's going to be is 420, assuming I didn't hit a button wrong on my calculator. Okay, so that's your least common multiple. So I hope that helped. Check out my other videos. Give me a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.